Hi, this is Stephanie Hansen, and you are listening to The Makers of Minnesota, where we talk to cool people doing cool things. And right now, I am in a factory, in a warehouse, as it were. And I just want to describe to you, when you open the door to where I am, you get the citrusy, hot, spicy, delicious smell of a habanero pepper. I am with Bernie Dolan, and we are at Double Take Salsa. And Bernie, I opened the door, and I felt like I was in the Caribbean.
Well, thank you.
That's amazing.
That's kind of what we want when we make our products. We want to bring you somewhere. We want to take you to a place that makes you happy, frankly.
Yeah. And then you said, we went and you gave me a tour of your facility, and you said you were making mustard. And I was like, that doesn't smell like mustard. What was it that you were making that has this delicious smell?
Well, today we're making the Scotch Bonnet Mustard hot sauce, and we made it quite a while ago, and I absolutely love this sauce. It's really savory and just has all these spices, and it does truly bring you to that roadside Jamaican jerk chicken hot sauce kind of place.
Like
so
the kind of thing you want to have on roti or on
exactly.
a jerk chicken thigh that's been grilled out on some steam kettle, or you know how they do the kettle drums.
Yeah. I love that, and it does bring you back, and it puts smiles on people's faces when you even talk about it.
Now, Bernie, salsa. How did you get into the salsa business?
Like a lot of people, I started growing some tomato plants at home and some peppers at home, and again had a overabundance one year and just started making salsa and bringing it into the office because I was literally throwing away 10 tomatoes every day because they're rotting on the vine, and that doesn't make anybody happy.
No.
So, but being a city boy and not knowing much about farming or growing anything, I kind of went a little overboard and won. So yeah, that's how it all started. I started bringing it into the office and sharing it, and it was just a good conversation piece.
You seem, and I hope you take this the right way because we don't know each other too well, but in my experience, men kind of like gadgets. Mm-hmm. And men like to do things, and once they get into it, it sort of grows exponentially. And I can totally see how this became a business for you.
It might be a competition kind of thing with men, with that kind of thing.
So when you had your first salsas and you're bringing them to friends, at what point then did you start going to farmers markets, or how did you grow Double Take Salsa? Because I mean, how many SKUs do you have? There's a lot.
We have a lot of SKUs. We have 5 salsa SKUs plus 2 salsa seasonal SKUs. We also have 4 hot sauce SKUs plus 2 kind of seasonal hot sauce SKUs, which is quite a bit. It's 13 SKUs total. And always looking and trying to mess around with different things as well is always a fun part of it. So that's what we have.
Were you going to farmers markets?
Yeah. So I was making salsa for probably 2 years and bringing it into the office. And then I started writing down recipes, like what I was doing. And, it always starts with 1 onion and 7 tomatoes and a little bit of cilantro. And then it moves to 3 ounces of cilantro, and actually weighing it out because tomatoes and onions are different. And so I just started making it. And then I started canning it, which I've never, again, being a city boy from Minneapolis, I've never done any canning. My mom never did any canning. I just had to learn how to do it. And so then I'd have it over the winter. And then people started saying, well, next time you make it, the normal thing, I'll start buying it from you.
Right.
And as I always say, whenever that comes up, I always say, my mom taught me to always give. And it's kind of hard for us to, take money for something. We're either going to do it to give it to you or we're not going to do it.
I can totally see that.
And so that's how it initially was. But then it started getting a little more, okay, well, I'll buy 5 or 6 jars or whatever. Just tell me what it is, And so I said, maybe I will give this a try. And so I went down and got my LLC done. And then in the spring of 2015, I did my first market. And it was a great success. I mean, it was nice because my friends, I told them first, right?
Sure.
Come on down and get it now because now I can legally sell it and all that kind of stuff. And then since it worked out so well, I got into the Linden Hills Farmers Market as well as the one in Northeast Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. And, every week it just kept growing and growing. And, by the end of it, people were – it was kind of funny and it was exciting that at the last couple of weeks of the farmers market, people were getting a little panicked, like, how am I going to, I need this. And they'd buy like a case of it, and
Right.
people were coming up buying cases of my product, which was really, it was really exciting, but also very humbling at the same time because it just seemed like a lot, and it was great. It was great.
So then you go from there, like that's where a lot of people stop.
Right.
It's kind of, I don't want to say a hobby business because that sounds maybe belittling and I don't mean to, but for a lot of people, that's enough. Like that's where it stops. It's their side hustle and they're happy there. How did you go from that to full-scale production and retail accounts?
Yeah, so also late in the first year of my farmers markets, I started having, smaller shops come to the farmers market and say, hey, we want to carry your product, and we want to carry your product. So then I started thinking, well, I wonder if I could, what will it take to really go and start doing wholesale?
And did you have another job at this point?
Yes, I did.
What was your job?
I was doing residential mortgages for Wells Fargo. So
super volatile business.
Super volatile.
When it's good, it's good.
But at the time, I was doing just fine.
Sure.
Making a living. And I had been doing it for 12 years at that point. So it's kind of like I had a consistent business, needless to say. But yeah, so then I just started looking into what it would take to do this and go wholesale with it, keeping my job at the same time. My next step was getting a commercial kitchen because I initially was making it all out of my house up until about September of 2015. So it was a solid 4+ months of making it just at home.
Yep.
I have to tell you, when you do that, it sounds kind of funny, but everybody does it that way, right? That's always how it starts. They don't just go and start making recipes in a commercial kitchen off the get-go. You do it at home. You figure it out. But when I started getting a little busier and when I knew it was time to move to a commercial kitchen was when the daughters and the wife were coughing and because they couldn't stand all the peppers.
Yeah,
that we
I
were
coughed
using.
earlier because it kind of catches in your throat because the oils are in the air.
So then we're like, all right, well, I'm cooking too often now, so I might need to start doing it somewhere else.
And then you're in a nice warehouse space now that you have retrofitted for your needs. Were you at a commercial kitchen for a while before coming here?
Yeah, I was at a commercial kitchen in South Minneapolis from, like I said, the fall, early winter of 2015 all the way until June of this year. So it was a solid almost 4 years.
Do you miss the camaraderie of being in a commercial kitchen because you had other vendors with you, I'm assuming?
I do. I like that. And when I drive a lot because I'm picking things up, I'm making deliveries. So in a weird way, I'm alone a lot. I don't interact. I don't go to meetings. I'm not a typical desk job person that has people right next to you and you hear people and you talk to them and whatever. So, yeah, that is important to me. But that being said, I do have people working here with me.
Yep. So
it's nice.
And you've got some other vendors that you're sharing space with or that are renting space from you. So that's cool.
Exactly. Yep.
The salsa business is super competitive and so is hot sauce. How did you get from the farmer's market to retail? Was it literally people wanting your product or did you have to pick up the phone and cold call? Did you have a salesperson?
Yeah, it's all I'm pretty much the salesperson. So I'm
you seem
calling
like
people.
You'd be good at it.
Thank you. I'm the one going into stores. I'm the one talking to grocery managers. I'm, giving free samples away like crazy.
And is that kind of what it takes? Because I'll just be honest, I've been with some people that they don't like to sample because people just want the free stuff. And I'm like, people, if you are not sampling your product, you are crazy.
Yeah, that's... I don't know any product that's going to be really successful without that.
I think so too. And when I'm at a market and one of my vendors isn't doing sampling, I know right away, okay, well, I'm writing you off because you're not going to have a good experience here because no one can taste your product.
Right. And, it's either that or it's a massive marketing budget, to get that brand awareness out and to market and advertise to them.
And you need people to be ambassadors for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And, I can't even tell you how many jars. I've given away, I think I counted before I even started, selling my salsa. I think I gave away close to, 800 jars of salsa and hot sauce.
That's really important for makers to hear.
Yeah.
I think it's really important for them to hear.
And then since then, it's been far more than that. I mean, because every time I get a new client that wants to see, the product line, whether it's a distributor or a different grocery store, I mean, I'm sending almost a case worth to every single person who wants it.
Mm-hmm.
Not every person, but every grocer and retailer and distributor, because they need to see it. They need to see the branding. They need to taste it. They need to know what it's about, feel it, hold it, touch it. So yeah.
And someone told me once, and I don't know about this from a tax standpoint, and obviously you're not a tax guy, but someone told me that, like, for all the samples that you sample or send out, that's like considered a marketing expense, or there's some way to line item it.
I'm sure there probably is, but the bottom line is you're still paying money for the ingredients and you're line iteming them. But I don't know if there's any specific way to do it, like to make it more of a benefit.
Yeah,
I guess I would say I guess I'm not quite sure about that. I don't worry about that too much. I just know I got to do it.
Yeah,
and I get it done and good. I'll jump a question for you, and you can just take it. But my whole motto with my salsa and hot sauce company, I mean, my salsa is expensive. I know that. But I started by kind of branding it and kind of marketing it and making it, and copying the craft beer industry. I said, 20 years ago, if you went into a liquor store, you would see Bud Light, Coors Light, Miller Lite, Mick Light, all these beers, and they're all $4.99 for a 6-pack.
Yep.
Then Sam Adams comes out, right? And they have the Boston Lager, and they're like $7.99. And people are like, why would I ever buy that when I can just buy a Coors Light, right? And now we know why, because it's better.
Yeah,
right?
and it just tastes better.
And it's good, and people have different tastes. Well, that's kind of what I did with my salsa. Yeah, it's more expensive. I get it, but it's better, and it's different. So that's a really good thing.
And do you remember, like, I can remember going to the grocery store with my mom, and like Pace was brand new.
Yeah.
And like we thought it like came from Texas. Like some guy, had been in his kitchen and he was making the salsa from Texas while we were watching all these $1 million commercials. But that was my first exposure to salsa.
Right.
It wasn't a condiment I'd ever been aware of. And honestly, you just threw out a statistic earlier when we were walking around your plant that it's number one selling condiment, that they're selling more than ketchup. And I believe that. I eat salsa with everything.
I know. It's easy to, right? And now there's so many different flavors of salsa that it makes it, you can switch it up,
And I cook with it too. Like if I'm going to make chili or something and I need a quick hack, or I have one pepper, but that's all I have, and some beans, I'll throw a jar of salsa in there with a can of beer. And I mean, I'm kind of an intuitive cook like that. Or if I have a bunch of leftover pork shoulder, I'll just throw a can of salsa in there, and that's the filling for burritos.
Yeah, it's great. It's awesome, and it's easy, right? When I started my company, I learned this from the mortgage industry, and there are two ways that the mortgage industry does business. One is, let's make as much profit as we can to keep our shareholders happy, right? And then we'll try to do the right thing, after that.
The fact, yep.
Or if you do the right thing, you're going to make profit, right? And both companies make profit. It's just a matter of what their mindset is. And that's really how I've done my salsa business is I don't say, how can I make profit on this? I say, let me make the best product I can. And if it's not the best, like we go out and it's funny because every time we make a new product, like the Verde was the most recent one, right? We would go online and we'd shop for like the most expensive Verdes. And we'd go to the grocery store. We'd go to the Kowalski's and Lunds and Barley's, and we'd buy them all, and we'd just sample them all. And until mine was hands down the best, it wouldn't go to market.
Yours was really good.
Thank
and
you.
I'm a Verde lover. That's actually, I use it a lot.
Thank you.
For eggs, and I make chicken chili with it.
Yeah.
And is it Herdez? That's the kind of standard that you can always find.
Yep.
I put it in Bloody Marys.
And my wife makes sour cream and chicken enchiladas with it.
Oh, yeah.
It's
That's
really,
what
really
we
good.
do that too.
So,
yeah, delicious.
So, yeah, that's kind of where I came from. It's, and again, mine's more expensive, but when your Verde has half green chilies and half tomatillos, green chilies are a lot more expensive.
Yeah.
Sorry, but that's the way it should be, right? And other people can't do that because green chilies are just too expensive. It's too time consuming to roast them all. So, but that's what we do.
Yep.
Which is why we have to, charge a little more, but at least we give you what you want.
Are you still growing a lot of the produce, or are you having to source it?
No, wife topic number 2 was
his wife is sitting here. I should just point out she's being quiet, but she is sitting here with us.
She at one point said, Bernie, you need to figure out if you're going to be a farmer or a salsa maker.
That's probably good advice.
And I said, I'm much more of a salsa maker. I'm a city boy, not a farmer. So now, though, I am proud to say that we do contract through a local organic farmer, family-owned, Sogan Valley Farms. He's just a great guy. Dana's a great guy. And we contracted 20,000 pounds of peppers from him this year. So it was quite a bit.
Where's his farm?
It's right in Cannon Falls.
Okay.
Yep.
So that's pretty cool that you can drive down there and see how the crop is going. And
Yep.
Because you talk to farmers and obviously the weather and climate change and whatever you think is happening, something's happening. Do you get stressed out if the fields are too wet? And because are you thinking about, that's your crop?
It does come up sometimes. At this point, I'm not super worried about it because I've always bought kind of too much product.
Okay.
If that makes sense, because I get worried. So here's something that's really interesting is so we get harvest during harvest, August to October, right? And we process it at that point, and we're not going to start using it until at least kind of November at the very soonest, but pretty much the whole year, the following year until harvest again, right? But we have to talk to our farmer about what we need and how many pounds we need in January. So January 20th or 2020 is when I'll put in my quote-unquote order for what I need.
Yep.
But I'm not even going to use that until pretty much most of 2021, which is a year and a half later. So, and with a growing business and just breaking into national accounts, it's nearly impossible to figure out who am I going to get, and how much do I need?
Yeah.
So I've always, and that's just kind of been the case the first 5 years of this, is, I've grown pretty decently the first 5 years, and it's just so hard to tell what you're going to need and how much you really are going to grow. So I've always ordered probably too much, but I process it. And
then you just freeze it and wait till it's time to do a batch?
Yep. Freeze what I don't use. Yep. So then, I have some, needless to say. So
thank God for freezers.
Yeah, seriously.
I live out of my freezer. I love it. What has been, so in terms of branding and design, you knew that you were going to be a premium salsa. You knew that it needed to look and feel a certain way. Did you hire a branding company, or how did you get to that process?
Well, my wife, third time now, she has always been in the advertising world.
Okay.
And so she knows people.
What's her name? So we can...
Adina,
she's sitting here. She's not going to talk, but Adina is here. Yeah. And came from the marketing and advertising side. So did she have a sense of what it needed to look like? And...
Well, no. So she does more analyst and strategic and managing versus creative.
Sure.
And but she knows, she works with all the creatives because she tells them, here's the scope. This is where we need to go with it. Now you guys figure it out. And she always knew who the best people were and approached one of them one day and said, would you like to help us with this? And he was like, yeah, I'd love to. Just give me some salsa and, I'd take him out for beer every once in a while. And, and he just got after it.
And he has done all the branding for all of the salsas.
Correct. And hot sauces too.
Okay. Yep. When you think about how your product needs to look on the shelf, how did you figure that out? How did you know? Because a lot of people have a real hard time with packaging.
Well, first thing is I shop and eat a lot, and I don't buy the same thing every time. I like trying new things. So the branding does have to stand out. But one of the most important things that Adina and I talk about often with this business is, letting go of the vine, quote unquote, and trusting that you have the best people in place to do their jobs, whether it's cooking or branding. And at some point I just had to sit back and let him do his thing.
Is that hard?
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's a really hard thing for entrepreneurs. I was just talking to a friend of mine who started a new company, and he's been there every day since it opened, and he also has another job. And I finally looked at him and I said, you don't need to be the person making the fries every day.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
your area of expertise, know what your lane is. And if you're burning out in the wrong lane, stop, because they need you in this other lane over here.
Right. Yep. It's exactly how it is. Yes, it's scary to do that, but it's also a financial thing because, we pretty much pump everything that we make back into the company so we can grow.
Yep.
I mean, I've heard mixed reviews on people saying, well, you have to pay yourself. You have to make sure you have a line item for that if you have, your books in place. And that's great and that's true. I agree with that, but I've met way too many people at these farmers markets and stuff that do pay themselves, and at the end of the year they get this big order, right? And they have $2,000 in the bank because they paid themselves $30,000 that year.
Right.
They can't make the order. They got to say no to it. I don't want to say no to an order.
Yeah. Did you? When did you quit your job?
I quit my job October 21st of 2016.
What was that conversation like with your wife, or were you guys ready and kind of marching towards it? Because that's a really hard time.
It is a hard time. Fortunately, my wife had a good job at the time. And she would always tell me, it was kind of funny looking back on it. She goes, I don't want you quitting until you can make enough money in salsa to supplement your income that you're making now. Right? I mean, that makes sense.
Sure.
That's a normal,
normal expectation.
Normal expectation, unless you know what it means to be a food maker. Then it's a completely unrealistic expectation, because you're not making, I didn't pay myself the first 3 years.
Right.
Everything went back into the business to help me grow. And I still feel like I grew pretty slowly. So, yeah.
Is your wife in the business with you full time now, or does she still have her advertising job?
She still does. She still has an advertising job, yes, but she helps a whole lot with all the back end logistic stuff and everything like that.
And medical benefits comes up a lot in family businesses because my personal situation, we pay $1,300 a month for our insurance for the three of us. And my husband has to have a little hand surgery. And he was like, well, insurance, is going to cover most of it except for 20%. I was like, oh, is that on top of my $23,000 I'm paying in my yearly premium? It's just crazy.
Right, yeah. And so my wife is still in the business of advertising, but she's a contractor and has been for many years now.
So you guys know the insurance pain.
We know the insurance pain. Fortunately, and that's one of the things that she takes care of is all that back-end logistical stuff. And she found, I feel like, we pay a decent amount, $1,700 a month or something for four of us, 2 kids and us two. But the deductible is really nice. It's like we don't pay much other than that. So
that's great.
Yeah. So we're happy with it.
And I think for entrepreneurs listening, those types of expenses that you don't think about when you think about I'm going to quit my job because I'm so in love with this other thing that I'm doing, and just being practical and understanding, how everyone I think that I've talked to has left their job 6 months too early, because you think you're all ready to go. And then there's all this stuff that you didn't think about.
Right.
So I always tell people have 6 months of income banked at the minimum. Yeah. If you're really doing it smartly, have a year banked at the minimum before you make that leap, because there's just so many expenses you don't foresee.
Yeah, it is. And that's a great thing, because you're right. And there's so many expenses and things that you don't see that you just are really hard to know before you jump into it. You learn a lot when you jump into it.
Yeah.
Even if you do a ton of research, you learn a lot when you jump into it.
How did you learn a lot? Did you learn it from talking to people? There seems to be two kinds of people. There's the people that sort of share everything and just tell you exactly what their experience was. And then there's other people that keep it close to the vest.
Yeah, I agree. I couldn't agree more with that. I'm much more of a talker, and I'm always willing to help anybody that wants my advice, but it's worth what it costs too.
Yeah.
It's just my advice, my opinion on different things with this sort of business. But yeah, just talking to people, and then when you get your wholesale license, how do you do that? What's that even mean?
Yeah.
Right. And so you just have to start, get on the
Asking
internet and
questions,
start figuring it out, and calling people at the FDA and calling people, what's a process authority? I have no idea. Oh my God, we have to do this too? Oh, how long is this?
And there is a lot of regulation.
There is now, for sure. I guess there has been for a decent amount of time. I've only been in the business for 5 years, but yeah, there is. And the really weird, there's a lot of things that are just really, really weird in the business too. Like there's no blueprint for how to do it. You just have to figure it out. And it's, to me, that's really just kind of off. And like a process authority, that's somebody who's an authority on the process. Well, there's no licensing for that. Almost anybody could be a process authority.
Right.
Because there's no licensing. You could just do it, The other funny thing, and I'm getting off topic a little bit, but the other funny thing is like Best Buy date. You look at a Best Buy date on a jar, and people that like don't eat it because it's past it. I make that up. There's no regulation on a Best Buy date.
That's so good to know, because Stephanie, my radio partner, and I,
yeah,
we, like, our moms scraped the mold off the top of something, and we ate it anyway.
Right.
Like, that's how we grew up, and
that's when it's bad.
and we just scraped, like, I've had salsa literally have mold on the top, and I just scrape it off. Yeah. It's probably not good, but I do. But,
well, it's not good if it's sat in your fridge for that long. You didn't like it that much, I guess.
Yeah, probably.
But no, so that's just like a really funny thing that people don't realize, and like, I don't know. It's just it's like, why isn't there any kind of regulation with that? That seems like something that maybe should
that you
be.
might regulate.
Yeah,
exactly. It's so funny. So when you look at the next year, what's coming up for you?
Yeah.
Do you still do farmers markets and?
Well, farmers markets. We did some of them this year.
Mm-hmm.
We were down at the Minneapolis one for a handful of times when we were ramping up in the summer and just trying to get a little cash back in our pockets since we just bought this place, and it pulled a lot of money out, right?
Yep.
But we do a lot more events, like holiday events,
sure,
because we have some great gift boxes these days. People are starting to know who we are a little bit more, but mostly just trying to get into more grocery accounts. And really, we bought this place so we could expand nationally, if not even just regionally. But we're crossing our fingers on some bigger accounts.
Do you literally like cold call the? I don't even know what it would be, and it's not the produce manager. It's
the grocery manager.
Yeah, like, hi, my name is Joe Blow, and this is what I do, and can I send you some salsa?
Yeah. Yes, I do. But at this point, being in a lot of those smaller stores around at least Minnesota, I've really tried to focus more on chains, grocery stores, So like the Lunds & Byerly's style, Kowalski's style, 10, 20, 50, 100 stores, you know. I'm going to try to pitch to a 161 store chain out east this winter still. And
so how do you do it? Do you call them? Send them salsa, then follow up, then try to get an in-person meeting.
Yep, that's exactly it. Calling them is really tough. A lot of times you can't find their number anywhere. Yep. There's no way to get hold of them. You might get so when you start going with the bigger kind of more chain grocers, they have a buyer, right? So for instance, like one of the biggest, Target, in our hometown, in our backyard, Target has a salsa buyer.
Okay.
That's all this woman does is buy salsa for Target.
Really?
Yeah.
That's
a full-time job.
Yeah.
Right? And so she does this. Well, you can't call her.
Sure.
You'll be lucky.
And they probably don't want to tell you who she is.
No, they don't want to. No, it's almost impossible to even know who you're supposed to be talking to. You almost have to be invited to pitch to them, right? And so that's kind of the new struggle these days. It's not just actually getting out there and knocking on doors. It's like trying to figure this stuff out.
These people are hidden.
Yep. And then you send them an email, and it just
black hole,
totally. So you just have to keep doing it. And you have to get creative with your emails and maybe give them something that they want to see.
Yep.
So that's kind of like the stuff that we're working on right now. But one thing that we've done, and I don't know the return on investment on this, but we've been doing the Fancy Food Show out in San Francisco last year and this year.
And there's a Minnesota contingent, right?
There is. There's
that's been put together
that
by,
we're
is
actually
it Grow North that puts that together?
I think it's just the Department of Ag.
Yep. Okay, and Ari maybe.
Yep. They might like help sponsor it or something like that. They're so we're doing that, and that's actually a good way to meet some of these national kind of buyers, because the buyers go to these things. And if they like the look of it and they like the feel of it and then they taste it and they think it's pretty good, then we start having a conversation. It's really nice. It's a good way to do it.
And just working trade shows, like, this sounds like an obvious, but like, work your booth. You cannot stand behind the booth and just stare at people and think they're going to come by and reach down and grab a sample. You're standing there without talking to them, staring at their hand, going to eat your thing is weird. People don't do that.
Right. I have a few people that have helped me that are kind of like that. And I have to tell these people over and over and over, and this is kind of my motto is, if you're not listening, you're talking. That's the rule. Bring them in. If nobody's there, you're still talking. Hey, do you guys want to try? People walking by, you gotta hustle.
Bring them in.
You gotta
yes.
hustle.
That's great advice.
Yep. And then my only other advice is that we need to make them very happy, because emotion sells better than anything. We want them happy when they're walking away from our booth.
Bernie, that is great advice. You are a sales guy. I can sense it in my bones.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having me out to your plant. I wish you guys the best of luck.
Thank you.
And thanks for being our guest today.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.